Hey everybody, and welcome to a Tatter-a-fact here at the Girlz Inc. studio in Las Vegas. And I got a really super cool guest today. And it was kind of a last minute thing that just kind of happened. And super stoked it happened because we have Stacey Ray here with us today.
Yay! I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm super happy to have you. And for those that, I think the majority of the industry knows who you are and familiar with your work because you're a specialist. You specialize in areolas and scar tissue. Yeah. So those that don't know who you are or not familiar with you, I want them to check you out. Do you have an Instagram?
Yeah, staceyray.art.
staceyray.art. And your company's name, that's your company, ART.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it stands for, just for our listeners, Areola Restoration Tattoo.
Areola Restorative Tattoo. Yeah.
Areola Restorative.
Restorative.
Yeah.
It's the same.
I could never say that after a martini. I know. Restorative.
Yeah.
Did I get that?
Yeah.
Okay. Areola Restorative Tattoo, which is great. I've this is actually the second time you and I have met.
Yeah. I came by to say hi to you back in 2018. I was just like, oh, Girlz Inc. I'd like to go meet Taryn and Amber because I kept hearing so much great things about you guys. And you were busy tattooing. Couldn't say hi.
I was working. Yeah.
I think that the person at the front was like, oh, do you want to go poke your head in? I'm like, no, they don't know who I am. Scare them.
That's funny. But we were both at a Vegas conference a couple months back. And I remember, because I know who you are, and we had never met. And I sometimes, believe it or not, I do get a little shy. And so I was walking behind. I look up. I had to go pee so bad, and I'm walking, and I look up, and I'm walking behind you, and there was no one else around.
Not awkward at all,
right? And there were like maybe two people different distance, and I kept trying to slow my walk to create more of a distance.
Not awkward at all.
No, but I really had to pee, so I'm like, fuck that, and so I think I said something like, I'm totally not following you to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then we got in there. It was just me and you. And I'm like, how about if you go down there and I go, we just make sure there's some stalls between us so we don't.
So you said that like there was one place that we were going. There's only one destination in that direction.
In that direction, and that was the bathroom.
So luckily you caught me halfway there and you're like, oh, hey, like it's nice to meet you. And I was like, I think I just trialed some of your needles before they came out. They didn't tell me whose needles they were, but we both made needles with Tat Soul and they sent me these needles. And so then when I saw the Girlz Inc. needles, I'm like, that must have been what I was playing with. So I was like, I think I just trialed your needles and I liked them.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And and you have your own needle line with Tat Soul as well.
Yeah, for
right?
areola tattooing.
Yeah, for the the configurations and diameters specific for areola work. And scar tissue work, areola?
I use them for everything. I made them to fill all of my needs.
Right.
And I do scar reduction and I do scar cover-ups, decorative scar cover-ups, and I do restorative tattooing, all kinds of restorative tattooing. And so I just told them all the different configurations that I would like to use for that and asked them if they could make 2 different boxes for that. And they did. Yeah. They did. I couldn't believe it. I was expecting some pushback, but they're like, if this is what she wants, this is what she gets. So luckily they let me make what I think is the ideal needles for working in challenging skin, no matter what you do.
Right. Yeah. Fantastic. And I love the box, like your box. You created your box. The design on the box is like super cool. You come from body tattooing, like I do, and you've been in this industry, body tattooing and areola and scar work, over 25, was that what you were saying? Over 25 years, correct?
Yeah, so I got a tattoo done in a basement when I was like 14 and with like the jailhouse kind, you know?
Yeah.
Because obviously no tattoo shop would give me a tattoo.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I'm getting
Hasn't
one.
hasn't everybody done that?
Anyone who's serious about tattooing, I think, or just like, I latched on, you know, I loved it.
Yeah.
So I started drawing flash and hanging around the local tattoo shop in 1989.
1989.
Dude,
Wow.
I was 14.
Yeah. 14.
Yeah.
And back then, it was tough being a female
Yeah.
in a male-dominated industry, in the tattoo industry. Is it still tough? Has it gotten easier for women in body tattooing?
I think so, yeah. Because like now I go to tattoo convention, it's like half women. I'm like, you guys don't even know. I remember when I was one of 3 women at the whole tattoo convention.
Absolutely.
The first convention I went to was in 98 or 99. And it was just a different world back then, you know, just a completely different world.
Completely different world. And we've got, you know, and there's like female rock stars in the body tattoo industry. You know, Liz Cook, one of your good friends, being one of them. I have the pleasure of seeing her at quite a few conferences throughout the year, and so I don't know her, you know, outside of the conference worlds. But we do hang out and see each other at the conferences, and I adore her, and she's a mega talent.
Yeah, you know, and I think I was just talking about this recently. I think the thing about her that really attracts me, and which is the same thing about you, is just that she just really cares about the craft.
Yeah.
She just loves tattooing. She just loves the art form. And I try to embody that. And I see that in you too. And that's kind of why I'm glad to be sitting here today with you. Just people who just really love the art of tattoo. Because it's ancient, it's sacred, you know, it's been around for up to 25,000 years. They're finding evidence of tattooing being around 25,000 years ago. Some people that pay attention to that are saying that it could be older than the pyramids. Like it's a cultural thing that just keeps beating the test of time.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And when you got here earlier today, we were talking, and we really kind of connected on a level. I don't want to get all like gushy and weird on you, you know, but we did. You know, I told you a little bit about my story, and I actually saw you, you know, saw you get a little emotional, or I thought I saw you get a little glossy in the eye, a little glossy in the eye area, Stacy. And that was when I told you, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm deeply passionate. I am in love with the craft. And not too many people refer to it as the craft. Yeah. So when you said that word today, the craft, immediately I lit up and I'm all ears. I want to know more just because you referred to it as the craft. And body tattooing and PMU, it saved my life. Yeah. And I'm not saying that as a cliche sort of thing. It really, really, truly saved my life. I don't know as if I would be here today.
Yeah, like it gave you something to believe in.
It gave me something to believe in. It gave me something to feel good about myself about. It gave me something to offer others. It made me feel happiness and joy for the very first time in many, many years. It got me out of a really dark place, and I got obsessed with it, and I've been dedicated and so loyal to it ever since. You know, almost 22 years, and your story is very, very similar. You feel your work saved your life. This industry, the craft, saved your life.
Yeah, I wrote an article for Freshly Inked magazine that said the title of it is "Tattoo Saved My Life." Literally.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. I think that's beautiful, and it's magical. It really, really is. And there's, you know, I think there's a lot of people in the industry's changed a lot, you know, in the last 5 years.
Well, it wasn't an industry back in the day. I have one thing to say about being a craftsman before we kind of move on too much, but it wasn't an industry when I got into it.
100%. I think when
And when we started calling it an industry, there was a lot of pushback from like the older guys, you know, where there was like one tattoo artist to town. They were like, no, don't industry this, don't corporate this, you know. And here we are. It kind of, it went on the TV shows and it took on its own life. And here we are just trying to kind of keep the ancient part of it alive. So you talked about the craft, and I would really love to tell you where I'm coming from real quick with that, because I'd like to inspire a lot of that in newer PMU tattooists.
Absolutely.
I'm admittedly not a PMU tattooist. I do everything but PMU. But since medical tattooing is kind of the bridge between body art and PMU, that I represent that. So I remember one of my heroes said to me, you know, you've got your artists and you've got your craftsmen. This was back in the 90s. He's like, you got your artists and you got your craftsmen. And what he meant by that is you have people who are artists who make art on the body, who put their art on the body. That's just one of their canvases that they use, right? And then craftsman is a technical thing. So back in the 90s, that would have been, a craftsman would have been a guy who can replicate, like flash it's on the wall and do a really good job of putting it in the skin technically. And my hero said, what you got to be good is be the perfect mixture of both of those things.
Yeah.
So that became my goal. I'm like, okay, so I want to be part artist, part craftsman, and
yeah, I think that's beautiful. I resonate with that for sure. I was lucky, you know. I entered into PMU first, as I told you, and just got disenchanted with, you know, eyebrows turning color, and I just was disenchanted, and I'm like, I'm gonna quit. And I'm going to go be a body tattoo artist. And because I could draw and sculpt, and, you know, I was super artistic, and I was drawing, you know, and painting big portraits at that time. Ever since I was a little kid, I was drawing portraits. And got an apprenticeship at the skin factory under Eddie Lynn, and he did not allow, you couldn't really purchase needles in his shop. He was a little bit of an old timer with a modern edge, if that makes sense. And so first 3 months, I just had to make all his needles. And then I remember this guy, Irish Mike, really didn't want to make his needles anymore, and he'd pay me a little money to make his needles. And I just started making needles. And I fell in love. And that's how I learned needles. And what I learned was I was using all the wrong needles. I was taught all the wrong needles in PMU. A 3 and 5 liner for everything was what I was taught, for eyebrows.
That's crazy to me.
Yes, that's all that was being used back then. Do you know, in 1999, 2000, that's predominantly what was being used, is a 3 liner, 5 liner for everything. I think every now and then you'd find a PMU artist that maybe was using a mag or a bigger needle configuration, but that was pretty obscure. And almost instantly, you know, I learned the movements, the core fundamental tattoo movements, and started applying that to my PMU. You know, my brows, my eyeliner, my lips, and my work changed overnight. Overnight. And one thing I'm going to say, which is a little funny, you know, circles in body tattooing, we do a lot of circles, right? That's how you pack in pigment. Do you know nowadays they consider that I can't tell you how, you guys, right? How many times we did a podcast on it, because they think the new generation of PMU artists thinks doing circles is, it's ancient, it's dated, it's irrelevant, and I'm like, that is one of the core fundamental movements of tattooing.
So here's the thing. I'm bad at interrupting. My apologies.
No, please.
Because I probably won't stop. I keep doing it, so I'm sorry. Bad at it. So to follow up with that, that's one of the reasons that I'm glad that you're a leader and a trainer in this, because you come from a body art world and you have that knowledge, right? Because the thing about going through a tattoo apprenticeship is you learn to do everything, so that you can bring the right technique or the right tool out for what's required of that job in that skin in that moment, and you learn everything. And so I started, and God, I hope this comes out with the love that I feel for the industry as a whole, because it almost seems like, you know, you take like this class for this, and you go take that class for
Yep.
that. And I'm like, but that doesn't make a master. Learning that way isn't the way to learn, because you have
Right.
to bridge all those gaps, right? So I made this analogy, and I really hope, like I said, that this is received with the love that it's intended, because I'm like, that's kind of like a doctor going and taking a 3 or 4 day class to learn how to set bones, and then going and taking another class to learn how to do administer an IV, and taking another class to learn about like drugs and anesthesiology, and does that make a doctor?
Yeah.
No, the doctor has to know everything.
Right.
So I feel like I'm glad that you kind of see the connection between all these things, because so many people come and take my classes that are missing that connection, that
Yeah.
is all tattooing, and we need to be able to do it all.
Right.
Well.
Exactly. You know, and I think I present my message, same message. I present a little bit differently. I preach versatility and efficiency.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 words that I've been using for years. And because what I see going on in the industry and is, you know, these young artists, and they're only being taught one needle, the single needle, maybe the single needle and a 3-liner, and they're being taught one way to implant, one way to move, the whip shading movement. And that's it, Stacy.
So those people should not do areolas.
Right, exactly.
There's much more to learn.
What a lot of them are finding out on their own once they've been working on clients a year or 2 years, you know, we get a ton of emails and calls. They're not successful or having successful results with a huge percent of their clientele because we're working on scar. Even if you don't do areola or scars, you know, you're working on even in the eyebrow area. You know, you can have scar tissue, you can have oily skin, challenging skin, resistant skin, you know, difficult, challenging skin without even any visible scars present. And you know, that single needle is not going to hold up. It's not going to do the job. It's not. And young artists are getting frustrated. So 100%, I'm with you on that. I would like to see young artists learning the single, the 3 and 5 liners, but also the larger round shaders and the larger mag configurations, learning the circular movement, the whip shading movement, you know, the core fundamentals of tattooing, which apply to PMU.
Well, it's all tattooing.
It's all tattooing, but some people do try to separate it.
Don't separate it.
Yeah. It's
we need to bridge this gap, not burn it.
100%. Yeah, so that's fantastic. That's why I'm so glad that you're on here today, and you know, and you know, and they do end up figuring it out, but I wish right from the get-go that they were taught this. You know, we do a 6-month apprenticeship here.
Yeah, that's what I think I like about Nevada, that there is a 6-month apprenticeship. I was kind of surprised by that, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they do it. But you were just saying like it's only a few hours a week, man. I was like in the tattoo shop all the time, you know, as soon as I could get in, I just didn't want to go home. As a matter of fact, I refer to it lovingly now as tenacity,
Yes.
but at the time it was naivety. I just didn't realize that they were trying to make me go home, and I was like, no, I'm fine. They're like, go home, kid. Like, you're not even old enough to be in here. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm just sitting in the corner doing my drawing. And eventually they started letting me clean the floors and answer the phone and do stencils for them. And
Right. Well,
I was just so happy to be learning.
That's a traditional tattoo apprenticeship. Yeah, here in Vegas is 6 months, but I believe it's only 2 hours a week that is required. So, you know, that doesn't fly with me. So they have to be here lots and lots of hours a week, and they just have to be here. And, you know, we teach single needle liners, shaders, all the movements, everything. So when they leave, you know, in 6 months, they've got a solid ground to stand on. They're versatile in their needle choices, in their movements, and they're better equipped for all the different skin types that are going to, lay down for them. And then when they're ready for scar tissue or areola, you know, like if, you know, An apprenticeship like that, a student being taught that way, when they come to you, they're better prepared for your specialty class.
They'll learn more that what I have to teach.
That's right.
They'll be able to take more home. They'll have a way higher success rate. They won't struggle as much. They'll be able to make sense, like problem solve, because scar tissue poses a lot of challenges.
Right.
And so you're setting people up for success. And I really appreciate that about you, because I keep thinking about like these crash courses and the people that come to ask me to take my training, and how little they actually know about tattooing. And I'm like, how is this allowed to happen?
Yeah, I know.
It just kind of makes me sad for tattooing.
And you know, to go cut hair in Nevada, like a year, 40 hours a week.
Right.
But to take a needle and put it in someone's face with ink on the end of it. Right? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We can cause scarring, infections, you know, transmitted diseases. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. Yeah. And I'll tell you, you know, I'll be very, you know, candid. I mean, you know, I charge $8,500 for my 6-month apprenticeship. I wanted it affordable, and come to find out, you know, most of the 6-month apprenticeships are out of state people. They're coming from California. They're coming from Arizona. I've got one coming from Ohio.
See, they want it.
They want it.
This level of
they
training.
want it. And $8,500 for 6 months. I mean, they're paying $4,000, $4 or $5,000 for a 2 or 3 day crash course in their local states, local areas. So why not locate out here for 6 months? And spend 6 months with us here at the Girlz Inc. studio.
Yeah.
So.